Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a bold truth. Wealth begins in the mind, long before it appears in your bank account. You see, millionaires don't just think differently because they have money. They have money because they think differently. And the good news is you can train your mind to think like they do. So today I'm going to give you a blueprint, not of money, but of mental discipline, vision, and habit. Most people spend their entire lives chasing money as if it were the ultimate goal. They work long hours, switch jobs, look for side hustles, and dream about hitting the lottery. But here's the truth that self-made millionaires know. Money is not the target, it's a result. The real gain is not about chasing money, but about creating value. When you shift your focus from earning money to creating value, everything changes. Your mindset expands, your impact grows, and ironically, money begins to flow toward you more effortless. Think about it this way. Money is simply a byproduct of value exchanged. Every dollar you've ever earned came from someone else who believed that what you gave them, whether it was your time, your service, your product, or your insight, was worth paying for. When millionaires think about how to make money, they don't ask, how can I get more? They ask, how can I get more in a way that scales? This fundamental shift from a consumer mindset to a value creator mindset is one of the most powerful transformations you can make in your life. The average person thinks in terms of hours. If I work X hours, I'll earn Y dollars. It's a direct exchange of time for money, and there's a hard limit to it. There are only so many hours in a day, but millionaires rarely think like that. Instead, they think in terms of value units. If I build something that helps 10,000 people, how much value is that worth to the world? And how can I multiply that impact? Let's take an example. Imagine someone who works at a restaurant. They show up every day, do what they're told, go home and hope for a raise every year or two. Now contrast that with someone who asks, how can I improve the customer experience so people come back more often? Can I develop a system to reduce food waste? Can I find a way to increase tips for the staff or upsell items to raise overall revenue? The second person is thinking in terms of value, and over time that mindset separates them from the pack. They get promoted faster, offered better opportunities, or even branch out and open their own business. Same job, different mindset. Millionaires understand that value can be created in many forms. It can be a product, a service, an idea, a system, or even an experience. The key is that it improves someone else's life in a measurable way. When Steve Jobs brought the iPhone to market, he wasn't just selling a phone, he was selling convenience, access, connection, and status. The value he provided was so high that people were willing to wait in line and pay a premium. And because the product scaled across millions, the financial reward matched the value delivered. This doesn't mean you have to invent the next iPhone to think like a millionaire. It just means you need to constantly ask, how can I solve problems that matter? When you become obsessed with solving real problems, especially ones that affect a lot of people, you become valuable. And when you become valuable, the world starts to compensate you accordingly. Another critical aspect is understanding that money flows to those who understand needs. Needs are everywhere. Every complaint you hear is a hidden opportunity. Every inefficiency in your workplace, every frustration in your daily life, every task that people hate doing, these are signals pointing you toward a potential value gap. If you can train your mind to spot these gaps and fill them creatively, you begin to tap into the mindset that generates wealth. Let's talk about leverage. When millionaires think about value, they also think about scale. One-on-one coaching is valuable, but writing a book that teaches 100,000 people the same principles? That's scalable value. Cooking dinner for one family is valuable, but opening a restaurant that serves 100 families a night? That's scalable value. Millionaires don't just create value, they create systems that deliver value to large numbers of people repeatedly. That's the secret behind every successful business, brand, or movement. Now, value isn't just about the external world. It starts inside your own mind. The more valuable you become as a thinker, problem solver, communicator, or leader, the more leverage you have to create and deliver value outwardly. That's why self-made millionaires invest heavily in their own learning. They read, study, practice, and refine their skills. They know that their mind is the most important asset they will ever own. The more you expand your capacity to think creatively, strategically, and empathetically, the more value you can offer. And the more value you offer, the more money you attract. It's also worth noting that value creation doesn't mean working harder. It means working smarter. You can hustle 14 hours a day and still be broke if you're doing work that doesn't solve meaningful problems. But a well-designed solution, a well-placed product, or a powerful message delivered at the right time can generate exponential returns. That's why mindset matters more than effort. Effort without strategy leads to burnout. But effort guided by a value-driven mindset leads to breakthrough. Let's pause and reflect on how this plays out in the digital world. In today's economy, attention is currency. If you can hold someone's attention, teach them something, inspire them, or solve a need online, you're providing digital value. That's why influencers, educators, and entrepreneurs are thriving in this space. They're not just posting for fun, they're crafting value-based content that meets people where they are. And when they offer products, services, or communities on the back of that value, people buy because trust has already been built. The same principle applies in relationships. Millionaire-minded people are always thinking, how can I add value to others? Not in a manipulative way, but from a place of genuine contribution. They build networks by helping people solve problems, connect to opportunities, or see things more clearly. That's why their networks grow stronger and more responsive over time. Value builds trust, and trust builds influence, and influence opens doors that money alone can't. Now here's a common trap that many people fall into: waiting until they have money to start thinking like a millionaire. That's backwards. The mindset must come first. You don't need wealth to practice value thinking. You just need awareness, discipline, and the courage to step into a different perspective. Every day, you can ask, what value did I create today? Who did I help? What problem did I solve? How did I improve something around me? These questions rewire your brain. They shift you from scarcity to abundance, from fear to creativity, from survival mode to growth mode. And once that shift happens, money starts to come, not as a result of luck, but as a reflection of who you've become. To be clear, this mindset doesn't guarantee instant wealth. It requires patience, experimentation, and persistence. But it does set you on a trajectory that moves faster, feels more purposeful, and compounds over time, because value has a ripple effect. When you build something useful, people talk about it. When you solve someone's pain point, they refer others. When you bring excellence into your work, people notice. It may start slow, but value never goes unrewarded for long. Here's one final truth: you are already sitting on value. Your experiences, your challenges, your unique perspective, these are raw materials for something meaningful. Don't discount what you know or who you are. Instead, ask, how can I package this into something that helps others? That's the beginning of value creation. You don't have to be rich to think like a millionaire. You just need to stop asking, what can I get? And start asking, what can I give that matters? Train your mind to look for value gaps, to solve problems, to serve generously, and to think beyond yourself, and wealth in many forms will follow. In a world dominated by instant gratification, pop-up notifications, fast money schemes, and the illusion of overnight success, one of the most powerful mental shifts you can make is to begin thinking in long-term terms. Millionaires are not fortune tellers. They don't possess magical abilities. What they have is vision, clear, patient, and long-ranging vision. They see further than others are willing to look. While most people are busy reacting to today's problems, the millionaire mind is already preparing for 5 years from now. That's not luck, that's training. The average person wakes up each day focused on what needs to be done right now, what bills are due, what errands need to be run, what obligations must be met to survive another day. And there's no shame in that. For many, survival is a real concern. But if you want to change your financial reality, your mental patterns must change first. Millionaires didn't start with wealth. Most of them started with a decision to think beyond the immediate, to stop trading comfort today for struggle tomorrow, to stop prioritizing instant results and instead choose long-term gains. This way of thinking doesn't come naturally in a world where everything is on demand. We are taught to expect immediate feedback. Click a button, get a result. Post a video, get likes. Work a week, expect a paycheck. But the things that lead to true sustainable wealth don't work like that. Building a skill takes years. Building a business takes sacrifice. Building an investment portfolio takes discipline. Building a reputation takes consistency. These things don't reward you right away. And that's where most people quit. They plant a seed and dig it up 2 weeks later because they don't see fruit. But millionaires understand that great things grow underground, invisible, long before they ever become visible. A long-term vision gives you clarity. It helps you filter out distractions that don't align with where you want to be. It allows you to say no to short-term pleasure because you've said yes to a bigger future. It gives you resilience in the face of setbacks because you know the journey is bigger than a single moment. You stop obsessing over daily results and start focusing on daily discipline. Let's imagine someone who wants to build wealth, but only thinks in monthly cycles. Every time they get paid, they spend nearly everything they make. They tell themselves they'll save more when they earn more. They're reacting to their current income, never planning for the future. Now contrast that with someone earning the same amount, but with a 10-year plan. This person starts setting aside a portion of their income every month, no matter how small. They invest in learning about personal finance. They build habits that support growth. Over time, the second person creates momentum. They may start slow, but they finish strong, because the long-term thinker always outlasts the short-term reactor. This same principle applies to business. Many people launch ventures expecting immediate profits. When the sales don't pour in during the first few months, they abandon ship. But millionaires know that business is like farming. You plant, you water, you weed, and you wait. Only then do you harvest. You must market when no one's paying attention, build when no one's applauding, and sell when no one's buying. That's the game. Long-term vision keeps you going when the surface shows no progress, but the roots are growing deep. A long-term mindset also influences how you view failure. The average person sees failure as a stop sign. Millionaires see it as a checkpoint. When you think short-term, failure feels final. But when you think long-term, you understand that every loss carries a lesson. And lessons are what builds strategy. Every time something doesn't work out, you learn what to avoid next time. Every closed door redirects you toward a better one. It's all part of the bigger picture. And when you're committed to the long run, you stop fearing temporary pain. There's also power in understanding the concept of compounding, not just in money, but in actions, habits, and choices. The long-term thinker knows that small efforts repeated consistently yield massive results over time. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't seem like much, but over a year, that's 3,650 pages. That's about 12 books. Most people don't read that in a decade. Investing $200 a month doesn't feel like you're changing your life, but do it consistently, and in 10 years with compound growth, it can transform your net worth. That's the quiet power of vision. It gives meaning to the small things because you see where they're leading. Millionaires are obsessed with legacy. They're not just thinking about making money, they're thinking about building something that lasts. something their children, their communities, or even total strangers can benefit from. Whether it's a company, a real estate portfolio, a foundation, or an idea, long-term thinkers play an entirely different game. They don't just want to get rich, they want to build wealth. And wealth is not just money, it's freedom, time, impact, influence, and options. Wealth is what happens when your past efforts continue paying you in the future, whether you're working or not. To think long-term also means developing patience. But patience doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean sitting back and hoping things magically work out. It means strategic persistence. It means you keep showing up, keep building, keep improving, knowing that what you're doing today is preparing you for something greater. Every hour of practice, every page you write, every connection you make is an investment in a future version of yourself that's far more capable, resourceful, and successful. There's a certain maturity required to think this way. It means accepting that you won't get recognition right away, that your efforts might be misunderstood, that the rewards will come later. It's easier to live for today. It's harder to build for tomorrow. But the people who shape the world, who transform industries, who rise from nothing to abundance, they are the ones who made peace with delayed gratification. They saw the vision even when no one else could see it, and they committed to it. Long-term vision also protects you from envy and comparison. When you're focused on your 10-year plan, you're not worried about someone else's 10-day win. You understand that success has seasons. What looks like someone's victory today might be the result of 10 years of quiet struggle, and you wouldn't trade your path for theirs if you truly knew the price they paid. When you have your own vision, you're not distracted by someone else's highlight reel. You're grounded, focused, unshakable. But having a long-term vision doesn't mean you neglect the present. In fact, it makes the present more intentional, because every decision you make now is a vote for the future you're building. You eat better not just to look good today, but to stay healthy in 10 years. You learn new skills not because you need them this week, but because they'll make you invaluable in your career. You build relationships not for quick favors, but for long-term trust. The present becomes sacred because it's how you honor your future. The truth is, anyone can begin to adopt this mindset. It starts with a simple question. Where do I want to be in 5, 10, or 20 years? Not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Then ask yourself, what would someone with that future do today? That question becomes a compass. It guides your behavior. It shapes your choices. It disciplines your thinking. It helps you walk away from shortcuts and commit to process. It teaches you to respect your own growth. And let's be honest, life is going to test your vision. You'll be tempted to settle. You'll be offered faster routes that look good but cost you your integrity. You'll have days when it feels like nothing is working. And that's when your long-term mindset will matter most. That's when you'll need to zoom out, breathe deep, and remember this is part of it. Growth is not linear. Progress is not always visible. But if you stay faithful to the process, if you keep planting seeds and nurturing them, something incredible begins to happen. You start to become the kind of person who creates success, not just chases it. You start to build internal wealth, character, wisdom, discipline that money can't buy. And over time, those internal qualities attract the external rewards you've been working toward. People will look at your results and call you lucky, but you'll know the truth. You'll know that the real victory was not in what you achieved, but in who you became while waiting for it. Thinking long term isn't about dreaming far off into the clouds. It's about living with direction. It's about choosing to make each day count because you've seen where it's all heading. And when you train your mind to think this way, not just once but consistently, you begin to live and lead like a millionaire long before the world sees your bank balance. Most people think the path to success is paved with intelligence, strategy, connections, or even luck. And while those things do matter, they pale in comparison to the silent force that controls nearly every decision we make, our emotions. Millionaires understand this better than anyone. They know that mastering emotions is not optional. It's the foundation of success. Because no matter how smart or talented you are, if you can't control your feelings, you'll constantly sabotage yourself. You'll make impulsive decisions, react to fear, give in to doubt, or allow anger, envy, or anxiety to dictate your actions. And in the high-stakes world of building wealth, that is the fastest way to lose everything. The truth is, emotions are powerful. They are not your enemy, but they are not your guide either. Millionaire minds learn how to observe emotions without obeying them. They feel fear, but they don't let it paralyze them. They feel doubt, but they don't let it derail their progress. They feel the frustration when things don't work out, but they don't lash out or quit. That's emotional intelligence, not the absence of emotion, but the ability to lead despite them. When most people experience failure, they internalize it. They make it personal. I'm not good enough, I'm not cut out for this, I should give up. That's an emotional response rooted in fear and insecurity. But millionaires respond differently. They look at failure as feedback. What went wrong? What can I learn? How do I adjust next time? That mindset requires a level of detachment from emotion, not because they're cold or robotic, but because they've trained themselves to respond, not react. In the world of investing, for example, emotional control can be the difference between wealth and ruin. Imagine someone who puts money in the market and watches it drop 15% in a week. Panic sets in. They pull their money out, locking in the loss. Meanwhile, the seasoned investor, with a calm and rational mindset, holds steady or even buys more, knowing that markets are volatile and that long-term thinking pays off. The first person let fear drive their decision. The second person let principles guide theirs. That's what emotional mastery looks like. This principle extends beyond money. It affects how you build relationships, run a business, and handle pressure. If you react emotionally every time someone criticizes you, you'll never grow. If you take every setback as an attack on your identity, you'll stop taking risks. If you need constant validation to feel secure, you'll stay stuck. Millionaires build emotional discipline because they know the external world will always be unpredictable. But your internal world, that's something you can shape. Training your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It means acknowledging them without becoming them. If you're afraid, say so to yourself. I'm afraid. This feels risky. This might fail. Then ask yourself, is this fear telling the truth or just trying to protect me from discomfort? Most of the time, fear isn't accurate. It's exaggerated. It's based on past experiences, not present facts. And once you expose fear to logic, it loses its grip. Emotions often act as triggers. One small thing can set off a chain of reactions that lead you far from your goals. A rejection leads to self-doubt, which leads to procrastination, which leads to missed opportunity. A negative comment leads to anger, which leads to impulsive decisions, which lead to damaged relationships. Millionaires learn to break these chains. They insert a pause between emotion and action. That pause is where wisdom lives. In that pause, you can ask better questions. What's really going on here? What outcome do I want? What would my future self do in this moment? That's not weakness. That's strength. Think of emotional mastery as mental endurance. Just like an athlete trains their body to push through fatigue, a millionaire trains their mind to push through emotional discomfort. They still get tired, discouraged, frustrated, or overwhelmed, but they don't let those feelings dictate their direction. They stay focused on their purpose. They honor the process, even when it's not easy. And most importantly, they maintain perspective. Because they know that emotions are temporary, but decisions create lasting consequences. In moments of high pressure, like closing a deal, firing an employee, or negotiating a contract, emotional control becomes your most valuable asset. People can sense when you're emotionally grounded. It builds trust. It commands respect. It gives you influence. On the flip side, if you're reactive, moody, or impulsive, you become unpredictable, and people don't invest in what they can't trust. That's why emotional stability is not just a personal asset, it's a professional advantage. We often talk about confidence as a key to success, but real confidence is not loud. It's not flashy. It's quiet. It's calm. It comes from the inner belief that you can handle whatever comes your way. And that belief is built through emotional trials. Every time you face adversity and stay composed, you reinforce the idea that you are capable. Every time you resist the urge to panic, complain, or blame, you build inner strength. That's how confidence compounds. There's also a massive connection between emotion and decision making. When your mind is clouded by emotion, especially fear, anxiety, or frustration, you make poor choices. You might accept a job that pays more but drains your soul. You might cling to toxic relationships because of fear of being alone. You might chase opportunities that don't align with your values because you're afraid of missing out. But when you master your emotions, you learn to choose from a place of clarity, not chaos. Emotional mastery also includes learning how to delay gratification. The ability to say, not now, but later, is one of the clearest predictors of long-term success. Can you resist spending money today to invest in your future? Can you walk away from short-term pleasure to build long-term fulfillment? That's not just willpower, that's emotional intelligence. The stronger your self-control, the stronger your outcomes. Millionaires develop this muscle early. They don't need everything to feel good immediately. They trust the process. They trust themselves. Let's talk about anger. It's one of the most destructive emotions when left unchecked. It can burn bridges, cloud judgment, and lead to decisions you regret. Millionaires feel anger like everyone else, but they process it differently. They don't explode. They don't suppress. They observe. They let it inform them without allowing it to define them. If someone wrongs them, they don't get revenge, they get better. They redirect the energy toward growth, not destruction. That's power. What about envy? One of the most subtle yet poisonous emotions. It creeps in when you compare your journey to someone else's highlight reel. It tells you that you're behind, that you're not enough, that someone else's win is your loss. But the millionaire mind knows how to disarm envy by turning it into inspiration. If they can do it, so can I. By turning it into focus. Let me get back to building my path. Emotional mastery turns envy into fuel, not poison. And emotional intelligence also shows up in how you treat others. It's easy to be kind when things are going well. But can you stay respectful when you're stressed? Can you stay generous when you feel depleted? Can you forgive when your pride is hurt? These moments reveal your level of mastery. And the people who succeed long-term are often not just the smartest, but the most emotionally stable. Now let's be clear, this is not about becoming emotionless. That's not the goal. Emotion brings depth to life. It fuels passion, love, creativity, and connection. The goal is not to eliminate emotions, but to elevate your response to them. To feel without being controlled. To express without exploding. To listen to your feelings, but not be led by them. That's the difference between a reactive life and a conscious one. So how do you develop this emotional discipline? It starts with awareness. Begin noticing your emotional patterns. What triggers you? What shuts you down? What pulls you off course? Then build tools to respond. Journaling, meditation, deep breathing, walking away from heated situations. These are not just wellness tricks. They're performance tools. They help you reset. They give you space to choose your next move. You also need reflection. Ask yourself regularly, what emotion is leading me right now? Is this emotion aligned with my goals? That kind of internal questioning creates clarity. Over time, your default reactions get replaced with deliberate responses. You don't just survive emotional storms, you navigate them with skill. Surrounding yourself with emotionally intelligent people helps too. If your environment is full of drama, gossip, and volatility, your own discipline will erode. But if you're around calm, intentional, purpose-driven people, their energy reinforces your own. Millionaires are very intentional about who they let influence their mindset. Ultimately, emotional mastery is not just a mindset, it's a daily practice, a lifelong discipline. And it's one of the clearest markers of someone who is truly wealthy, not just in finances, but in peace, clarity, and self-respect. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. You stop being a slave to fear, to anger, to doubt. You start living by design, not default. The world will always test your emotions. Things will go wrong. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. But if your inner world is solid, the outer world can't shake you. That's what separates millionaires from everyone else. They don't just have money. They have mental power. And that power comes from choosing mastery again and again, even when it's hard. And so, if you want to train your mind like a millionaire, don't just read books, study finance, or chase opportunities. Start with yourself. Learn to lead your emotions. Learn to understand them, challenge them, and rise above them. Because when your emotions serve your goals, instead of sabotaging them, there's nothing you can't achieve. One of the most consistent truths among self-made millionaires is that before they invested in real estate, stocks, businesses, or assets, they invested in something far more valuable themselves. The average person looks outside for opportunities, the next hot stock, the trending industry, the business idea that might go viral. But the millionaire mind knows that the greatest return will always come from internal growth. When you invest in yourself, you become the asset. You carry your value with you. Markets rise and fall, companies fail, trends change. But who you are, what you know, how you think, and the skills you've built, those are permanent, portable, and powerful. Unfortunately, many people skip this step. They try to shortcut the process by chasing external rewards before building internal capability. But what good is $1 million opportunity if you don't have the discipline to manage it? What good is a promotion if you lack the leadership to sustain it? What good is launching a business if you haven't developed the resilience to handle pressure? Millionaires understand this. That's why they're always learning, always improving, always evolving. Their mind is their most important real estate. They treat it like prime property worthy of maintenance, investment, and expansion. Investing in yourself starts with education, not just formal degrees, but real applied knowledge. Read the books, take the courses, learn the skills that elevate your thinking, not because you need a certificate to impress someone, but because every new insight sharpens your advantage. Knowledge isn't power until it's applied. And the more you understand the rules of money, influence, time management, psychology, and human behavior, the more prepared you are to create value in the world. And value is what wealth is built on. But self-investment isn't just intellectual. It's emotional, physical, and spiritual too. Millionaires treat their body like a business asset because it is. Energy matters. Focus matters. If you're constantly tired, stressed, or burned out, you can't operate at a high level. That's why they exercise, eat intentionally, get quality sleep, and prioritize wellness. Not to show off, but to perform better. A sharp mind needs a strong body to support it. You can't outthink a weak lifestyle. Investing in your health is a form of self-respect, and it pays dividends in productivity, clarity, and confidence. Emotionally, investing in yourself means building self-awareness, knowing your triggers, your fears, your limiting beliefs, because you can only grow to the level of your emotional intelligence. Millionaires dig deep. They ask hard questions. Why do I react that way? Why do I hesitate to take risks? Why do I keep sabotaging progress? This kind of introspection is uncomfortable, but it's transformative. It reveals blind spots and opens up space for growth. It breaks generational patterns. It creates freedom from old scripts. Most people avoid inner work. Millionaires embrace it. They also invest in their mindset because they understand that every result begins with a thought. So they guard their inputs. They choose mentors over gossip, books over noise, environments that stretch them rather than shrink them. They don't just consume information, they curate it. They expose themselves to people who think bigger, act bolder, and expect more from life. because proximity is power. Who you learn from becomes who you become. Millionaires know that success leaves clues, so they study the lives, habits, and philosophies of those who have walked the path before them. That's a mindset investment, and it pays off every single day. Investing in yourself also means learning how to communicate well. Your ideas, your vision, your value, they only matter if you can articulate them. Whether it's speaking, writing, negotiating, or leading, communication is a multiplier. Millionaires understand this, so they study language, persuasion, storytelling, and presence. Because no matter what field you're in, your ability to influence determines your ability to succeed. If you can't pitch yourself, your services, or your mission, you'll always depend on someone else to open the door. But when you invest in your voice, you start opening your own doors and even building new ones. Another area of self-investment is skill development. Millionaires don't settle. They don't rely on one strength or rest on old achievements. They ask, what can I master next? They pursue high-income skills, copywriting, sales, coding, public speaking, marketing, investing, leadership, because they know that skills pay bills. And not just any bills, the kind that free you from dependence, the kind that give you leverage, the kind that allow you to create money, not just earn it. Skills are assets that appreciate over time. They compound, they create opportunities you didn't even know existed. And the more valuable you become, the less you have to chase success. It starts chasing you. Self-investment also involves discipline. Millionaires invest in routines, habits, and systems that keep them focused even when motivation fades. They design their days with purpose. They track progress. They build rituals that support their goals. They understand that consistency beats intensity. A single productive day won't make you wealthy, but 1,000 disciplined ones will. So they invest in structure, not because it's sexy, but because it works. They also invest in failure. That's right, failure. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Because failure is the tuition you pay for wisdom. Millionaires aren't afraid to fall because they see each setback as a lesson. They extract value from every loss. They treat mistakes as data. That mindset is a direct result of self-investment. When you know your worth isn't tied to your wins, you stop fearing failure. You stop playing small. You take calculated risks, knowing that whether you win or learn, you grow. And growth is the real goal. On a deeper level, investing in yourself is about identity. Who are you becoming? What version of yourself are you building? Millionaires are obsessed with this question. They don't just work for money, they work on themselves. They understand that wealth is attracted to character, integrity, creativity, grit, vision. Those are internal traits that shape external outcomes. So they invest in their identity. They ask, what does the next level version of me do, think, read, say, avoid, and pursue? And then they act accordingly, even before the results show up. That's how you become someone new. That's how you become someone who deserves what you desire. It also means saying no to things that don't serve you. Every time you say yes to distraction, comparison, drama, or mediocrity, you are stealing time and energy from your future self. Millionaires say no often, not out of arrogance, but alignment, because they know their time is too valuable to waste. Investing in yourself means creating boundaries, not barriers. Boundaries that protect your focus, your peace, and your potential. And let's not forget, investing in yourself also means healing. You can't build sustainably if you're broken internally. The millionaire mind doesn't ignore pain, it processes it, it confronts trauma, it releases shame, it forgives, not because it's easy, but because unhealed wounds create expensive patterns. If you want to be free financially, you must be free mentally and emotionally. That means therapy, coaching, journaling, prayer, or whatever it takes to clean the lens through which you see the world. Clarity creates power, and healing brings clarity. So why don't more people do this? Why do they spend thousands on stuff but hesitate to spend hundreds on growth? Because self-investment requires delayed gratification. It requires faith that your future self will thank you. It doesn't offer immediate proof, but it guarantees long-term payoff. Millionaires aren't smarter, they're just more patient. They trust the process of becoming. They don't need applause today, they're building something bigger. That's the mindset that separates them. They understand that success isn't something you chase, it's something you attract by the person you become. And becoming that person takes time, intention, effort, and investment. Not once, but continuously. Millionaires never stop investing in themselves. Even when they have all the money they need, they keep growing. Because they're not just building wealth, they're becoming wealth. So if you're serious about changing your life, start here. Not with the market, not with social media, not with the next scheme. Start with you, who you are, how you think, what you believe, what you know, how you operate under pressure, how you treat people, how you manage time, how you handle failure. All of that is part of your net worth. And unlike external assets, no one can take that away from you. This is the real secret. The million-dollar version of you isn't found, it's built. It's built through choices, challenges, commitment, and consistent self-development. It's built by saying, I am worth the investment. Every hour you spend learning, growing, healing, and stretching beyond your comfort zone compounds into a future you can't even imagine yet. That future is waiting, and the key to unlocking it is already within you. So train your mind like a millionaire. Invest in the one asset that will never depreciate: yourself. Because when you grow, everything around you grows. Your income, your impact, your influence, and most importantly, your ability to live life on your terms. One of the most underestimated but most powerful factors in shaping your mindset and financial future is your environment. Specifically, the people you spend your time with. You can have the best goals, read the best books, and develop the sharpest skills, but if you're surrounded by people who doubt you, diminish you, distract you, or drain your energy, you'll constantly be at war with your own potential. Millionaires understand this deeply. That's why they are intentional, ruthlessly intentional about their circle. They know that your circle is either your cage or your launch pad. It either limits your growth or accelerates it. And if you want to think, act, and succeed like a millionaire, you must first surround yourself with people who reflect the kind of life you're building, not the kind of life you're leaving behind.
The truth is, human beings are social creatures. We absorb the energy, mindset, language, and habits of the people around us, whether we realize it or not. You might think you're making your own choices, but subconsciously, you're modeling the expectations and behaviors of your environment. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, scarcity thinking, gossip, procrastination, and fear-based decisions, that starts to feel normal. And when dysfunction becomes normal, excellence starts to feel uncomfortable. That's why you must be vigilant about who you allow into your mind space. Because your environment isn't neutral. It's either feeding your growth or feeding your doubts.
Millionaires don't just network to collect contacts. They curate connections. They look for people who challenge their thinking, expand their perspective, and raise their standards. They spend time with others who are hungry for progress, committed to excellence, and focused on purpose. When you're around people who are stretching themselves, it becomes harder to stay small. Their drive rubs off on you. Their ambition becomes contagious. Their belief in what's possible starts to override your old fears. And before you know it, you're evolving, not because you were forced to, but because you were inspired to. This is why the most powerful transformations don't happen in isolation. They happen in community. You've probably experienced this without even realizing it. Maybe you've had a conversation with someone who made you think differently, who made you question your limitation, who didn't laugh at your dreams, but leaned in and said, let's figure this out. That one conversation can shift your entire trajectory. That's the power of the right people. Millionaires seek out those conversations constantly. They don't wait for them to happen by accident. They create them. They do this by joining masterminds, hiring coaches, attending seminars, reading biographies, and listening to podcasts and interviews of people who have done what they want to do. Even if they don't have direct decks to these mentors, they still immerse themselves in the mindset of the successful. Because again, success leaves clues, and exposure is the first step to expansion. You can't become what you never see. So surround yourself with evidence that greatness is possible, and then make that your baseline. But it's not just about surrounding yourself with successful people. It's about surrounding yourself with growth-minded people. There's a difference. Not everyone who has money thinks abundantly. Not everyone with a title is living with integrity. Growth-minded people are learners. They're humble. They're curious. They're more interested in evolving than in appearing impressive. They're not afraid of hard conversations, and they won't let you shrink just to stay comfortable. That's the kind of environment that breeds transformation, not one built on status, but on substance. It's also important to understand that the people closest to you may not always support your growth, not because they're bad people, but because your change confronts their comfort. When you start thinking bigger, aiming higher, and making different choices, it can threaten those who are still living by old patterns. They may try to pull you back, not out of malice, but out of familiarity. They may say things like, "Why are you working so hard? You've changed," or "That's risky." And if you're not grounded in your vision, you'll start to internalize that doubt. But millionaires know how to hold their vision even when others don't understand it. They don't need permission to evolve. They don't wait for applause. They stay aligned with their purpose, even if it means walking a different path. That doesn't mean you have to cut everyone off, but it does mean you may need to shift the weight of your relationships. Give more time and attention to those who are moving forward, and less to those who keep circling the same patterns. Be kind to everyone, but be exclusive with your energy. Millionaires value time too much to spend it in environments that subtract from their mission. Also, remember that you're not just a product of your environment, you're a contributor to it. If you want to be surrounded by growth-minded people, you have to be one. Be the kind of person others want to grow with. Be generous with your knowledge. Be humble about your journey. Be honest about your challenges. Share wins and wisdom. Support others without expectation. When you show up with value, you naturally attract people who do the same. And together you create a rising tide where everyone gets better. Relationships like these don't always come easy. They take time to build and effort to maintain, but the return is priceless. A single conversation with the right person can unlock an idea you never thought of, a perspective you never considered, or a solution you've been stuck on for years. A single introduction can lead to a business opportunity, a collaboration, or a life-changing investment. A single supportive voice can give you the courage to take that leap. That's not luck, that's alignment. And it happens when you intentionally build your circle with people who are moving in the same direction. It's also important to build a support system that holds you accountable. Not just people who cheer you on when you win, but those who call you out when you're slipping. Millionaires appreciate this kind of honest feedback. They don't surround themselves with yes men or people pleasers. They surround themselves with people who care enough to challenge them, who won't let them settle, who remind them of their standards. Accountability is not about judgment, it's about partnership. When you know others are watching, expecting your best, you naturally rise to the occasion. Another overlooked benefit of a growth-minded circle is emotional safety. The journey to success is hard. It's filled with uncertainty, rejection, setbacks, and doubt. If you're doing it alone, it's easy to get discouraged. But when you have a community that understands the grind, that validates your struggles without letting you quit, that celebrates your resilience even more than your results, that's fuel. That's how you stay in the game long enough to win. Let's not ignore the energy factor. Every person you interact with either gives you energy or takes it away. Pay attention to how you feel after conversations. Do you feel inspired, motivated, and clear? Or do you feel drained, confused, and small? Your energy is currency, and millionaires guard it like their bank account. They know that one toxic relationship can cost more than a bad investment. That's why they're quick to protect their peace, even if it means disappointing others, because you can't build something great if you're constantly depleted. Social media too plays a role in your circle, even though you may not know those people personally. The content you consume daily influences your mindset. Are you following creators who challenge your thinking, teach you valuable lessons, and remind you what's possible? Or are you just scrolling through drama, noise, and empty distractions? Curate your feed like your future depends on it, because it does. Building a powerful circle is not about exclusivity or elitism. It's about intention. It's about putting yourself in rooms, virtual or physical, where growth is the standard, not the exception, where dreams are discussed like reality, where problems are solved, not just complained about, where people celebrate your wins and push you to keep going. These are the spaces where millionaire minds are born, not because of the money, but because of the mindset. If you don't yet have access to that kind of circle, start by becoming it. Be the one who thinks bigger, who encourages others, who shares resources, who invites people into growth. It might feel lonely at first, but soon you'll start attracting others like you. That's how leadership works. It starts with one person refusing to play small and giving others permission to do the same. Ultimately, the company you keep shapes the person you become, and the person you become determines the life you live. Millionaires don't leave that to chance. They choose their circle with purpose because they know it's not just about who you know, it's about who you grow with. If you want to train your mind like a millionaire, elevate your environment. Surround yourself with people who make growth the norm, not the exception. People who believe in possibilities, not limitations. People who remind you of who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Because when your circle reflects your vision, success stops feeling like a solo journey and starts becoming a shared mission. One of the most defining traits that separates millionaire minds from the rest is their radical sense of responsibility. It's not just about being accountable when things go right. It's about owning everything, even when things go wrong. Especially when things go wrong. People who rise to the top in any field didn't get there because they had perfect circumstances, luck, or constant support. They got there because they made a decision early on that no matter what happened, they would take full ownership of their outcomes, their choices, their mistakes, and their growth. They dropped the habit of blaming, complaining, and making excuses because they understood something simple but powerful. Excuses might protect your ego, but they will never build your future. Most people spend their energy avoiding responsibility because it's uncomfortable. It requires admitting when you're wrong, facing your shortcomings, and stepping up even when no one is watching. But millionaires embrace this discomfort. They see responsibility not as a burden but as a privilege. When you take responsibility, you take control. When you blame others or circumstances, you hand over your power. It might feel justified in the moment, blaming your boss, your parents, your partner, the economy, but in doing so, you trap yourself in a cycle of helplessness. And helplessness never built anything worthwhile. The millionaire mind refuses to be a victim of life. It understands that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. That response is where power lives. Responsibility is not about fault. It's about response. It's saying, this might not be my fault, but it is my problem and I will face it head on. That mindset shifts everything because it puts you in the driver's seat. It allows you to act instead of react. It turns obstacles into stepping stones and failures into feedback. That's the attitude of someone who builds real success. Excuses are seductive. They often sound reasonable and even intelligent. I don't have enough time. I'm not ready yet. I didn't grow up with money. The market is bad. Nobody supports me. These statements might be true on the surface, but they become cages when you let them dictate your actions. Millionaires hear the same excuses. They face the same challenges, but instead of surrendering to them, they ask better questions. How can I find time? What can I do with the resources I do have? Who can I become to attract support? What new strategy can I try? They don't wait for perfect conditions. They create progress under imperfect ones. That's not motivation. That's mindset. Taking responsibility also means owning your thoughts. Most people believe their thoughts are facts, but the millionaire mind questions its own thinking. It doesn't just accept fear, doubt, or insecurity as truth. It analyzes them. Where did this belief come from? Is this helpful? Is this serving me? Responsibility starts in the mind. It's about saying, I may have been programmed one way, but I can choose differently now. That level of self-awareness is rare, but it's the foundation of personal power. If you can take responsibility for your thoughts, you can reshape your entire life. Behavior is the next level. Millionaires don't outsource blame when their actions don't align with their goals. If they procrastinate, they own it. If they make a bad investment, they learn from it. If they hurt someone, they apologize. This isn't weakness, it's maturity, it's strength. People respect those who are honest with themselves. More importantly, those people move forward faster because they're not wasting time justifying failure or pretending everything's fine. They get real, get humbled, and get better. That's how they evolve so quickly. Many people fear responsibility because they confuse it with guilt or shame. But guilt says, I'm bad, and shame says, I'll never be enough. Responsibility, in contrast, says, I am capable of more, and I will rise. Millionaires carry that belief every day. They believe that growth is always possible, that new choices are always available, and that their life is their responsibility, not their neighbors', not their governments, not their pasts. That belief gives them freedom. It's not always easy, but it's always empowering. Taking responsibility also means being honest about your current situation. You can't change what you won't face. If your finances are a mess, own it. If your relationships are toxic, admit it. If you've been making excuses for years, see it clearly. That clarity is the first step to transformation. There's no breakthrough without brutal honesty. Millionaires audit their lives constantly, not to judge themselves, but to improve themselves. They ask, where am I lying to myself? What am I pretending not to know? What story am I telling that's holding me back? These questions cut through the noise and get to the truth. And the truth always sets you free, especially financially. Another critical aspect of responsibility is follow-through. The world is full of people who start things but never finish. Millionaires make commitments and honor them. If they say they'll do something, they do it, even if they don't feel like it later. That integrity builds trust with themselves and with others. It creates momentum. It turns goals into reality. Excuses kill dreams, but discipline brings them to life. When you live with responsibility, you don't need motivation every day. You have standards. Responsibility also extends to your results. Millionaires don't rely on luck or blame others when they don't get the outcome they wanted. They look inward. What could I have done better? Where did I miss the mark? What can I change next time? This mindset turns every loss into a lesson. Most people fail and say, I guess I'm not cut out for this. Millionaires fail and say, okay, version 1 didn't work, let's improve version 2. That persistence isn't about being fearless. It's about being fully responsible for the mission. They understand that no one is coming to save them, and they're okay with that because they trust themselves to figure it out. Taking full responsibility also means not blaming your past. Many people stay stuck because they're waiting for closure, justice, or an apology that may never come. Millionaires don't wait. They make peace with the past, extract the lesson, and move forward. Yes, you may have had it harder than others. Yes, you may have been treated unfairly, but carrying that pain forever will only anchor you to it. Responsibility means choosing freedom over resentment. It means saying, what happened was real. It shaped me, but it doesn't have to define me. That mindset is liberating. It allows you to write a new chapter, even if the first few were written in struggle. Taking responsibility also transforms your relationships. When you stop blaming others and start owning your part, you grow. You become more empathetic, more accountable, more emotionally intelligent. Millionaires know that wealth isn't just about money, it's about the quality of your life, and your relationships play a big role in that. When you take responsibility, you stop pointing fingers and start building bridges. You stop needing to be right and start focusing on what's right. That maturity deepens trust and opens doors to partnerships, collaborations, and opportunities you'd never reach alone. Responsibility is also the antidote to entitlement. In a world where many people expect rewards without effort, recognition without results, or success without sacrifice, the millionaire mind stands apart. It says, no one owes me anything. If I want it, I'll earn it. That humility, combined with work ethic, creates unstoppable momentum. You stop waiting for handouts or shortcuts. You start becoming the kind of person who deserves success, not just someone who wishes for it. That shift in identity changes everything. When you fully embrace responsibility, you also eliminate the gap between intention and action. Most people have great ideas, big goals, and good intentions, but their execution is inconsistent. Millionaires close that gap. They don't just talk about what they're going to do. They do it. They don't just write goals down. They take daily action. That consistency comes from a deep sense of personal responsibility. It's not about pressure. It's about purpose. When your mission matters enough, you stop negotiating with excuses. And finally, taking responsibility gives you pride. Not the arrogant kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're doing your best, that you're showing up for your life, that you're not waiting to be saved or discovered or rescued. You're building something brick by brick. That self-respect becomes unshakable. It radiates. People notice. Opportunities find you because the world rewards those who lead themselves first. The truth is, every excuse you make costs you. It costs you time. It costs you clarity. It costs you momentum. And most painfully, it costs you potential. Millionaires choose to pay the price of discipline and responsibility rather than the far heavier price of regret. They understand that the most important project they'll ever work on is themselves, and they take full ownership of that project every single day. So if you want to train your mind like a millionaire, start here. Stop making excuses. Stop waiting. Stop blaming. Own your story. Own your choices. Own your future. Because the moment you take full responsibility is the moment everything begins to change. Not just your bank account, but your confidence, your relationships, your impact, and your freedom. That's where true wealth begins. Not in your wallet, but in your mindset. And responsibility is the foundation of it all.